Hello and welcome to the Steel Sports Show, the U Sports podcast. Wherever you're listening, if you're watching our YouTube stream, thank you for joining us. Pleased to be joined, as always, by my co-host, Martin Brown. Martin, how are you?
I'm good, Nathan. How are you? It's been a couple of weeks, lots going on. How have you been?
Yeah, doing great. Gearing up for Thanksgiving, one of my favorite holidays.
It's
I mean,
coming soon, yeah.
Yeah, how can you beat just hanging out and stuffing your face with turkey and all the fixins and enjoying a little bit of sports while we're at it. Probably a little.
Are you the cook for Thanksgiving in your house?
Yeah, we've hosted Thanksgiving before, and it's a lot of work. I don't mind it too much because then you don't really have to travel anywhere or have to fool with that. But but then again, I don't mind traveling and then, just kind of hanging out and helping out where is needed. But yeah, it has always been a tradition, with my family, with my wife's family. So we try to kind of alternate year by year and, go with the different families. So, but it's always one of the favorites just to get everybody together and hang out and have fun and just spend a full day just hanging out. What about you?
We usually host. I usually do most of the cooking. One thing being from England is I don't have to worry about having my family over, so it's just my wife's family. And with my 4 kids, it's much easier staying at home, even though I then do the cooking, as well. So yeah, I do most of the sides. I'll do some desserts. I'll cook. We do usually 2 turkeys. My mother-in-law does a roasted oven one, and I'll do a deep fried one.
Oh, yeah.
So, mix it up a little bit. So yeah, no, it's going to be fun. We've got that going on, and getting ready for that. We've just transitioned in my house to winter sports. So my 3 youngest have all started basketball this year. My 3-year-old started for the first time. He's playing. He's a little young, but he's playing, and my oldest high schooler is just about to start her. Come right after Thanksgiving will be a basketball season. She'll be starting. So she's hoping to play varsity. She did as a freshman. She's hoping to again as a sophomore. So yeah, it's have you transitioned into winter sports in your house?
Yeah, we're into swimming now. So and that, I mean, we started about a month and a half ago, but now it's like full force with meets. And I mean, heck, we have meets all the way through March with the short course season. So swimming going on. We just finished up running this past weekend. Little Girls on the Run running program that my daughter does and has loved for the last couple of years. So yeah. But we just had softball tryouts this past weekend too. So
oh my god,
already starting to think about the spring for softball. So it never ends.
It doesn't stop, right? It just keeps going and going.
And my 10-year-old, she's already in the mindset. She loves softball, but she's already thinking about the other sports and how it is going to help her with softball. Yeah. So which I love, right? You want kids to try so many different sports, and even at 10, she's already talking about how swimming's going to help her stamina with pitching, and running with the same thing, like endurance. So it's pretty cool just to see a 10-year-old starting to think about this.
Oh, that's really awesome. I mean, we know we'll be doing I'm sure we'll do a future episode on sports specialization at young ages. There's a lot to dive into, and it's great that your daughter's already seeing the benefits of playing multiple sports. And a lot of these top athletes do. Well, they'll have a primary sport focusing on multiple sports to help that primary sport or secondary sport is crucial. So that's awesome. It's great stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of soccer going on lately. I mean, let's start off with the United States men's national team. They picked up a win over Jamaica, a 1-0 win, and kind of got a quick goal and held on. But what'd you make out of that game against Jamaica?
Yeah, it was a good game. Again, I think you're starting to see some of Pochettino's fingerprints on the team. A lot of soccer, as you said, usually international break, it's a little calmer, but we've got international games, we've got MLS playoffs, we've got NWSL to get to. But I thought I thought the game against Jamaica was good. I mean, obviously they got the goal early. When obviously Pulisic had that great assist delivering it to Ricardo Pepi. Obviously, Matt Turner came up big, made in the crucial save for the penalty, against the Premier League's Damari Gray. And obviously, once the Jamaican team went down to 10 men, I think it was always going to be something that they should see the game out. And obviously, they did. And obviously, the significant, I think, factor was it was Pochettino's first competitive win as head coach. And the second leg, 1-0, the tie's not done. It's definitely gonna. They've still got some work to do, but obviously coming home, playing that second game at home, obviously it'll be in St. Louis, and the winner will advance to the semi-final. But great opportunity for the US men's national team. I think you're starting to see some of that tactical element that Pochettino is going to bring, and they're certainly a little bit more solid, I think, defensively. But again, don't want to get too excited too early because they weren't fully tested, against a decent Jamaica team, but certainly not a world-class Jamaica team. Certainly not the level that they're going to see in a couple of years at the World Cup. But yeah, it was certainly a good game for the US, and hopefully they'll now go on and if they can reach that final, I think that'll start to get after a poor Copa America last year. I think that will really start to generate some buzz and excitement going into 26 if they can get to another final in the Nations League and potentially win that. So
it's always good to get a road win, right? Mm-hmm. Especially against a team that you're going to face in qualifying, and always a tough team. It's always tough to go on the road, to those different CONCACAF nations. But now you got the home game in St. Louis, which is always a benefit. So I
think I read a stat that he has the same number of away competitive game wins as Berhalter did in his entire career. So that's just quite a lot, I think, in the previous regime. But Nation League, we had Nation League here, we had Nation League in Europe as well. A lot going on in the UEFA Nations League. France securing top spot in Group A. Group A2 as it is, with a good 3-1 win over Italy. That was a pretty good game. I don't know if you caught that one. France winning out against Italy on goal difference to take first place. You also had in Group A Spain clinching top spot as well. In Group B, you had England being promoted after a bit of a rout to the Republic of Ireland, 5-0 at Wembley after they went down to 10 men. So them being automatically promoted. And then in Group C, surprising to see, obviously still surprising to see Germany so low in that Nations League, but they devastated Bosnia and Herzegovina 7-0 and going to secure top spot and promotion back up to the Group B. So that was certainly good. A couple other, Israel got their first highlights. They had to play that in neutral territory in Budapest against Belgium, which, again, Belgium just... What a disappointment over the last probably 10 years for Belgium. And I would hate to be a Belgium fan, I think, at this point, given all the talent that they've had. So losing, a late goal there. And then the other thing I found interesting is, and I saw an article on, was the Serbia-Switzerland game. Not a game normally we would cover, but Alexa Terzic scored a late equalizer for Serbia against Switzerland. The funny thing was nothing remarkable about the goal. What was remarkable is he emulated Cristiano Ronaldo's celebration in the corner flag, the leap that he does, and actually injured himself and had to be substituted. So I did find that kind of fairly amusing as well, going into that. But that was kind of the, going on the international break, that was certainly the international highlights. Obviously, US Nations League took the billing there, but the UEFA Champions League the UEFA Nations League was certainly fun to watch this couple of these last few days as well. But coming back, go on.
I was going to say I'm surprised in a way that there aren't more injuries during soccer celebrations, to be honest with you. I see some of these celebrations, obviously leaping in the air, and there's
fighting your knees and surprisingly ligaments don't go. We might just be a lot older and a lot more. At least myself, talking to myself, I'm a lot older and maybe not as fit as those players are. So I think us trying to do those celebrations certainly might be for some comedic relief for people if that was on video.
You have to ask this guy if, okay, so next time you score, what's your celebration going to be? It might just be, walk back to the center line.
After you get injure yourself and you have to be substituted for doing a celebration, you probably shouldn't celebrate and just jog back to get into position ready for the next thing. But of course, domestically, we had a couple of big playoff rounds going on, both in the MLS and the NWSL. The big news that obviously I know you are aware of, and I'm sure everybody else listening to this as well, is Miami being kicked out. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago on the show, and I got to be honest. I got to say that I think it's an embarrassment to MLS, Apple, Messi, Inter Miami, and FIFA, and I'm going to call all of them and say it's an embarrassment to all of them. Because the thing that was, that I think is most embarrassing, that winning the Supporters Shield, getting that berth to the World Club Cup, Infantino standing there in front of the Miami crowd saying they're going to have a home game here, they're invited, and they're not even going to be the MLS champion is got to be a little bit hurtful. I think they were all, and we talked about it, on the last show. They just it's got to be definitely being a little embarrassing, and for everybody involved, I think that all of this money being poured in it. But for the youngsters watching, it goes to show, one player does not make a team. It is a team sport, and on any given day, any team could beat any other team. Starts with hard work, starts with doing the right things, and the Atlanta really deserved, I thought, over the 3 games, and I know we talked about the 3-game playoff last time as well, but over the 3 games, they certainly, I thought, deserved to go through. I think that moving on, Atlanta moving on to the next round. Obviously, they'll play Orlando in the next round. We've obviously got a Eastern Conference November 23rd, big game, Derby, New York against New York. So New York City FC against New York Red Bulls after they came through. Obviously New York City FC beating your hometown FC Cincinnati in the Eastern Conference, and New York Red Bulls securing a 2-0 series victory over the defending MLS Cup champions Columbus Crew. So not a great New York outdid Ohio, I think, in both of those games for you, Nathan, being a Cincinnati native. So
I mean, it came down to penalties. I mean, we talk about penalties, often, but FC Cincinnati goalkeeper did pretty well to save a couple, and then just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. Toward the end of the penalty shootout, I think it went to 8 or 9 kicks. I mean, it was. Yeah, a little frustrating, but I mean, is there a buzz from a New York standpoint in terms of having those 2 teams square off against each other? Is there some bad blood, or what?
No, I don't think there's bad blood. I mean, obviously, New York Red Bulls technically play in New Jersey, but that's kind of like the New York Giants, New York Jets scenario as well. But I don't think there's bad blood. I think. There's a bit of a buzz around the New York metro area for that game, and I think it'll certainly be a good game. I do think, surprisingly, I am going to tip the Red Bulls to win that game. But again, now we go into a 1-game playoff rather than the 3 games, so obviously anything can happen on any given days. We've already seen across that, and obviously in the West, I think if I'm MLS, I'm hoping for an LA Western Conference final between LAFC and LA Galaxy. But I do think that Seattle and I think Minnesota will certainly have something to say about that. I thought Minnesota really got rid of Real Salt Lake pretty easily, comfortably with that 2-0 series win. And Seattle obviously departing Houston Dynamo out of the competition with their series 2-0 win as well. So some good games to get up to, but I know we talked about it last time. There's just so many games. You just kind of want to get down to that kind of last few, and really see those top games. But it'll be interesting to see the attendance, the TV. I wish Apple would release their ratings a little bit more of the MLS. It'd be interesting to see how those playoff games with the 3-game series actually performed from a ratings perspective. But we'll try and get some of that information if we can and share it in the future. But on the flip side, also we've had the NWSL playoffs, which is obviously been exciting. We now have just had the semifinals. We have the championship game coming up on November 23rd. Obviously, the Washington Spirit will compete against the Orlando Pride. I don't know if you saw the Spirit Gotham game. Bunch of penalties, and I've got to say, Spirit absolutely perfect penalties. Three goals, first 3 penalties, all in the corners, and then their keeper came up with 3 saves right back to back. So perfect way to do penalties, talking about penalty kicks. Orlando taking care of business against Kansas City Current, which was actually, I don't know if you saw that game, but it was certainly highlighted by a spectacular goal from Marta, who is still going strong at 38 years old, the 6-time FIFA World Player of the Year. What a player she still is, even at that more advanced age for a professional soccer player. But she is absolutely fantastic to watch still, and we're still lucky to see her on each of on our TV and gracing our presence from the NWSL. So.
Yeah, it was incredible skill on that goal. I mean, I watched it back maybe 5 or 6 different times, and even kind of scrolling to slow it down just to see her movement and see the 2 defenders just go down to the ground and and then deep to the goalie, and incredible goal.
It certainly was worthy of winning.
Great player.
Yes, she is worthy of winning any playoff game, I think. And so there's a lot going on in soccer. I mean, in the youth world of soccer as well, there was a couple of big highlights, I thought. Lily Johannes, who is a 17-year-old midfielder, plays for Ajax. She was actually born in Virginia, but was raised in the Netherlands, has committed to the US women's national team. So I think as a defensive midfielder, young blood, getting someone of that quality is certainly going to be beneficial for the US women's national team. And Emma Hayes, I'm sure she'll start to look at her and bringing her into the squad in the upcoming games. And also I thought was another one, Barjong Darbo from LAFC was signed by Bayern Munich for $1.5 million. Another example of a large transfer fee, at least a large transfer fee from US standpoint to Europe. The 18-year-old US Youth International who trained with Bayern in 2022 will join the German club in January of 25. So a couple of good headlines, I think, for our youth soccer players out there. But I know normally we turn our attention to the baseball world, but we're on obviously postseason. We haven't got to winter meetings yet, but I know one of the things that we wanted to talk about today was, it's not Oscars, not any time, but it is baseball awards season. So, a lot of coveted awards: MVP, Cy Young, Rookie, Manager of the Year, Silver Slugger, Gold Glove, all up for grabs. Interested in getting your take on who are the favorites out of the finalists that you've got. Obviously, Judge is in there, Soto, Ohtani. You've got Seth Lugo for the Cy Young, potentially Zach Gallen as well. So a lot of different opportunities. But what's your take on the awards for baseball, and do you think there's going to be any surprises?
I don't think there'll be too many surprises, honestly. I mean, I think some of the big awards are fairly cut and dry, honestly.
Who do you think's going to win MVP?
I think it's pretty clear. Aaron Judge in the American League and Shohei Ohtani in the National League. And I mean, it's not to say that the other finalists didn't have great seasons. I mean, you look at the seasons that Juan Soto and Bobby Witt Jr. had in the American League. I mean, I think you take Judge out of it, and those two have put up certainly MVP numbers. But I mean, Judge was honestly just on a different planet, another level. And I know people are quick to judge him on just the playoffs. And, I just think that's unfair. When you look at just the whole body of work, the 162 game season, what he was able to do, again, I mean, just consistently, he's been just on another level. And I mean, the same to be said for Shohei Ohtani. I mean, in the National League, I think he's the clear winner. I mean, probably unanimous when it's all said and done. But yeah, I mean, I think those two just ahead of the class when it comes to MVP.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you look at Judge, 58 home runs, 144 RBIs, a 1.159 OPS. I mean, and then you look at Ohtani, 54 home runs, the 59 stolen bases, a 1.036 OPS. I mean, when you look at those numbers, they're just outstanding and almost off the chart a little bit. And that, normally you wouldn't, maybe you see them every few years, but to get two players putting up numbers like that, in the same season and then doing it year over year, it seems is just outstanding. And I think that's going to be certainly, I would agree with you that it would be a super shock if Judge and Ohtani are not the MVP for the American and National Leagues. So, turning your attention, what do you think about the Cy Young?
Yeah, Cy Young's it's an interesting one, especially in the American League, because you have, I think the front runner is Tarik Skubal from the Tigers. But you have a guy in Emmanuel Clase who was just so dominant when it comes to a relief pitcher, a closer. And I mean, had such an incredible year. 47 saves. His ERA was 0.61, and he was virtually unhittable. And so now the debate's always, well, can you give it to a guy who, he only throws 74 innings, right? As opposed to a starter. It's really tough. I mean, and that's why you hardly see relief pitchers, you hardly see closers winning Cy Young awards.
Yeah.
And that's why I would lean toward Skubal, as dominating as Clase was. And I mean, you can't, I mean, he had an incredible season, but I still look at starting pitchers and, what they do in the innings that they provide. And, to me, I think he's the winner in the American League.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, Skubal, Lugo, obviously Clase. I think, Skubal, 2.39 ERA over 192 innings. Again, when you mentioned 192 innings versus 74, that is a big difference. 228 strikeouts in that time as a starter, I think definitely is the standout. But I think the National League might be a little bit more open. I don't know what your take is. You've got some really good opportunity. I think Corbin Burns from the Brewers, had a fantastic season, continued his dominance on the mound, great ERA and strikeout rate. But what's your take on the National League, Cy Young?
Yeah, I mean, Paul Skeens, obviously, great year. I think he'll be Rookie of the Year for the National League. Zach Wheeler was great for the Phillies. Me personally, I'd give it to Chris Sale from Atlanta. And I mean, Chris Sale, he had Tommy John surgery back in 2020. He was so good, for a stretch with the White Sox, with the Red Sox. I mean, he was such a great, reliable starter. 8 innings, constantly provided wins, low ERA. Was an ace pitcher for a number of years. Gets injured. He had never won a Cy Young. As good as he was in those years with the White Sox and the Red Sox before he had Tommy John surgery, never won a Cy Young, but was always there. So to see, and really after Tommy John surgery, this has really been the first year that he's been fully back. So to see him, pitch to that ace level once again is pretty cool to see. And having him come back, even though he's getting up there in age. I mean, he's 35. So I think this is the year he finally gets it done, and he wins that Cy Young that's kind of eluded him throughout his career.
Yeah, no, it's definitely. Led the league in several pitching categories this year. I think the interesting one for me is going to be the race for manager of the year in both the American League and the National League. In the National League, I certainly think that Mendoza deserves it with the run that the Mets they had a tough start to the season. Obviously made a great run through the playoffs as well. Obviously Pat Murphy had a great season with the Brewers as well. So I think that's going to be interesting. I think on the American side, so Cleveland, Stephen Vogt and Matt Quatraro from Kansas City, obviously kind of heading up that. But what's your feeling? What's your gut telling you about the manager of the year? Obviously, as a Steel Sports, coaching organization, we're certainly paying close attention to the managers, those coaches, those that get out and do it. So, what is your take on the manager of the year?
Yeah, I think in the American League, there's so many different candidates that you can put up there, and I mean, I'd be fine honestly with any one of them winning. Probably lean toward AJ Hinch with the Tigers and what they were able to do, and you look at the payroll that they had, and to make the run at the end of the season to make the playoffs, just an incredible job. A young team, and without the star power that you see from a lot of teams that made the playoffs. So, you also wonder, will his past affect the voting? Obviously he was a part of the Astros and the cheating scandal that went on, and he lost his job.
Yeah.
You wonder if that's going to play into the voting at all. But I don't think you can discount the job that he did with that team to get them to where they are ahead of schedule, really. I don't think anyone thought that they were going to make the playoffs this year, but I think a lot of people thought that they were one of those teams that were up and coming and one to look out for in the future. National League, I probably agree with you with Carlos Mendoza. Yes, the payroll is huge, but I mean, he stepped in and did an incredible job with that team. But yeah, I mean, I think I don't know, manager of the year. It's one of those awards. There are a lot of deserving candidates for it, and I wouldn't be shocked or wouldn't be disappointed if someone else wins. I think there are a lot of worthy candidates.
Yeah, I mentioned Pat Murphy, obviously from the Milwaukee Brewers. It's great to see him out at a youth baseball camp, an initiative out in Milwaukee. He recently participated in a youth baseball camp, which was designed to foster the future of the sport. So it's really great to see some of the high-profile players on the shortlist for National League Manager of the Year getting out and connecting with the youth baseball world. And on another side note, really, Nathan, I wanted to give a quick shout out. Here, I'm sat here in New Jersey, just outside of Bridgewater, and I wanted to give a shout out to the Bradley Garden Little Loop Baseball and T-Ball program. They are preparing to celebrate their they've just actually completed their 66th season in 2024. The league was established in 1959 and continues to offer baseball opportunities to children aged 5 to 15 in this area. So I wanted to, showcase a little bit of our youth baseball. Great to see Pat Murphy out, and great to see some of these programs going into the 60th and 70th year for baseball and continuing to remain strong. So
definitely. That's awesome. I know we're going to get into another soccer topic.
Yeah.
And we've launched our Beyond the Game blog series, and a hot topic that could be decided on this week is the age classification for youth soccer. And currently it's when you look at youth soccer, and this was kind of changed. It's kind of gone back and forth a little bit. But kind of going back to the grade.
Yeah.
What's your take on this? And I know one of our colleagues, Steve Roper, who has a couple kids.
Steve he's wrote a great article. We're going to release it. It'll be in the bio after the show. But he wrote a great article on this. It's called "The Future of Youth Soccer: Age Groupings, What's at Stake for Our Family in the U.S. Soccer System." He actually was had a couple of kids that were kind of in that kind of trapped area. But for those that don't know. Coming after the '94 World Cup, there was a huge explosion, obviously, of soccer camp organizations, and soccer camp became in soccer started to become quite big. And then as you got into the early 2000s, it shifted to more of the travel team, as some of the other sports did, but soccer was really kind of that forefront of leading that kind of out of that camp. Kids coming out and playing soccer in the summer, really transitioning it into team sport, into travel sports. And then from like the early 2000s all the way up to 2026, age classification of these travel teams was really done on an August 1st to July 31st timing, which it was kind of mirrored the academic year. So you kind of played with most of the kids that you were in your grade. Along came 2016, and really with no grandfathering in, not a ton of surveys, US Soccer decided at the outset just to change the system from that mirroring that academic year, that August 1st to July 31st age classification, to a birth year. So January 1st to December 31st. And, there's definitely people on both sides of the fence, on this. There are obviously, for those that don't know, most national level teams, either at the youth level and obviously up until all of the under 21 age groups, are done on birth year. So the thinking behind doing so, and it said it was really kind of rammed through everybody. The thinking behind was it will make us more competitive internationally, because our players will now be competing at that same level. They'll be playing with those same players consistently. I never bought in to that. I certainly think you can have, national players, but they kind of pigeonhole every kid that may be the one that's playing just fall season only, 10 weeks a year, having to do this. And it led to, I thought a lot more cons than pros. I want to talk a little bit about, those pros, and the big pro argument on that pro side is player development. They say it's better for player development, it's going to reduce age-based discrepancies, smooth transition into high school sports, easier team scheduling, improve social, bonding with kids, in that age. Kids that were kind of in the middle of the pack or that lower end of the grade were now in the older side of it, so, we're going to have bigger, stronger, faster players. Honestly, I didn't buy all of that. I was never a fan of the change when it happened. Obviously, we're going to find out later this week if they're going to go back to that kind of more academic year. But to me, the three biggest problems was really kind of the three areas of trapped players. So players that start, playing, if they, if they're in a grade, August to July, they're in, second, third grade, whenever they're starting to play travel sports. If you were born in that January or later, you didn't have a team to play on because it was birth year and it would have been the prior birth year. So that was number one. First, then you're already splitting kids up right away. Number two, track player involved in the 8th grade scenario. So, you're on a team now that's half 8th grade, half 9th grade. 9th grade are going to freshmen. They're playing freshman soccer. They're playing high school ball. And then you've got half a team that didn't have anything to do for an entire season, an entire fall season where all those kids are off at high school. They're comrades in terms of their grade year, but now their teammates are off playing high school. And then lastly, I think one of the biggest issues I think was underrated from US soccer really was the senior. You could have been playing on a team for, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And all of a sudden, if you're in that lower half of the grade year from a birth perspective, your team's done. Your team's gone. Half your team has now moved on, and you're left without a team to play on. If you're in that lower end. So I think there was just no real thought about adding, when they did this in 2016. Again, there was no study, there was no survey. It was rammed down, and there was no need for everybody to kind of get into that. I think it's good that they're going back to it, or hopefully going back to it. We don't know. But there's just been so many, I think, incidences of kids at the start, kids in the middle, and then kids at the end, where it just doesn't make sense. And again, how many kids are playing soccer that are not playing on our national teams? How many kids are playing it just for fun? And you know what? When you're a kid and you're doing it for fun, who do you want to play with? You want to play with kids that you go to school with. You want to play kids in your neighborhood that are the same age as you. And I think we lost a little bit of that. And I think, if you look at the statistics, there's been no increased It hasn't certainly increased the retention of players within the sport. I think if anything, it should have got more. We've now got more players leaving the sport than we have gaining the sport, and I think a lot of it comes down to both year and the fact that kids want to play with the sports. Unless again, playing at the elite level, yeah, you're playing there for a certain reason. You're playing to be the best you can be. You're playing to compete, get on a national team. That's great. It's a small number of kids. And I think for the majority of kids playing, they want to have fun. They want to play with their kids. They want to be able to go to school and talk about the travel game that they played on. Not that they're playing on one team and their friends now playing on a different team because they happen to be in the same grade, but they're in different birth years. So I was never a fan. I think there's definitely going to be positives if they do kind of go back. But I think it's going to be important for parents now that we've kind of gone through this for 8 years. If they do decide to change it back, there's going to be issues obviously going back now because people have been on teams. So whether they grandfather it in over time, we'll see. But I certainly think that parents can do a lot to support the kids, particularly if they happen to have to change teams or they're not playing with the same teams that they were. But I do encourage everyone to read Steve's article. He really talks and goes into detail about why it was introduced, why it's been revisited, how it affected his kids. His oldest son was right at that time in the 8th grade. When this first started, and I think he really talks about it quite a lot in his article. So encourage people to read it. But I know that you've got some your kids kind of doing the young sports stuff. But what's your take on this change? I know you're well versed in it.
Yeah, and it's not going to affect my kids. My kids, aren't at that level on the soccer side. And my son's been playing soccer. My daughter really hasn't. But I think for the reasons you mentioned, I think it makes more sense. To go back to the grade school classification, and and I think a big part of it might be with the World Cup coming up. That might be a factor in it too, as far as making this change. If you're wanting to increase the participation in the sport, like you said, keep it fun. Keep kids together with the kids that they're going to school with, that they're classmates with. Certainly I think it can help retention, but I think it might help bring new players into the sport, and you obviously want to keep them in the sport. But I think doing this now in the run up to the World Cup, I think there probably is some sight on increasing participation, and this might be one of the ways to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the data, it tells you that the number one reason kids drop out at 13 is that it's no longer fun. And I think having to play with kids that are maybe in the grade older, maybe, you don't get on with them, maybe you don't know them very well, versus, your own friends that you're consistently around. I think that has to play into keeping the game, and the sport fun for kids. So I'm certainly a big fan of that. I think, it'll also put a little bit more emphasis back on, high school, soccer. I was a high school varsity coach for 12 years. I have pros and cons about, high school sports, but at the end of the day, representing your local town for your high school, playing on a team, regardless of the sport, with your classmates, with kids that you're going to spend a lot of time with, is a sense of pride. And US soccer kind of got away from that, and you see some of these elite level programs and leagues not allowing kids to play high school, switching back to the academic or closest to the academic year, certainly going to make it a smooth transition into high school sports, and maybe there can be a positive on that side of it as well, and maybe kids will stay in because they can still play high school. They like that. If you talk to kids, they want to play for the high school, they want to represent them, have that school spirit, play with their friends, and then they can still go and have that travel experience, whether it's with those locally or somewhere else. And I think hopefully this could help improve the level of high school play, and kids playing consistently together for a longer period of time. So I'm certainly hopeful. I think there's a lot of pros to it. I think there's still cons. Every system has pros and cons, right? You're never going to get it completely right. Birth year has pros, birth year has cons. Academic year has pros, academic year has cons.
Sure.
So I think, but I think if you're looking at trying to impact the majority of players and the majority of kids playing the sport, I think it makes sense to go back to academic year and focus on the game being fun. And kids having a good time, and then falling in love with the sport consistently and not dropping out at 13, when it's no longer, fun. So, and I think there's still going to be opportunities for kids to play, at a very high level, whether that's national level or other leagues and clubs. And I don't think that changes by having, academic or birth year. So yeah, I'm certainly hopeful it does. They make the decision. I think it'll be the right decision, but, US soccer has surprised us in the past. So we'll see what happens in the future. It's good to see, though, a lot of the governing bodies around the leagues, US Club, USYS, AYSO, all committing to following whatever the recommendation is, and certainly hopeful the recommendation does go back to academic year. That certainly would be my preference. But
yeah, and
thought.
I will say, thinking back to my experience, and I mean, look, I wasn't an elite level soccer player. I played a little bit of club soccer, at the high school level. I played up until my freshman year. But one of the things I remember, and maybe the most fun that I had playing soccer, was we had played club and we were just kind of tired of it. When we got to like sophomore, junior, senior year. And we got a group of friends who played soccer and formed essentially our own rec team. And I mean, we had a blast. We practiced a couple times a week. One of the dads kind of coached us, and we were kind of free to kind of do our own thing. But it was so much fun because you're with your friends, you're with your classmates, and as a group we put together, and it was almost kind of like your last hurrah as a soccer player. None of us were going on to play.
That's what the game should be. There's only a small portion, and there's nothing wrong with pursuing an elite level, play, an elite level team. There's nothing wrong with that, pursuing if that's what your dream is. But that's not what everybody's, dream is playing soccer is. Their dream is they want to have a good time. They want to learn life lessons. They want to be better athletically. They want to learn skills, yes. But their focus isn't, I want to go play for the men's or women's national team, when in a few years' time. And I think we've legislated for the very few rather than the more the bigger population of players. So I certainly hope that we go back to that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great topic. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Great topic. I said we'll have the article from Steve Roper in our bio. Appreciate Steve, giving his thoughts on that. I know our next episode will be joined by another guest, but it's been an absolute pleasure sitting with you. We nice always when we talk about these soccer topics. It really engages us. So certainly appreciate your time, Nathan, and to everybody, thanks for listening. We will see you in a.
You got to wrap us up with the stat of the day.
The stat of the show. Yeah, I almost forgot that. So yeah, I was thinking about this from thinking about the birth year change and the retention. We've touched on that a little bit. So the stat that I have is actually for youth sports. It's 11%. So in 2023, team sports participation saw an 11% increase from the previous year, reaching the highest number since 2014. However, the caveat to this week's stat is the core participation, which is defined as more frequent engagement, has remained low and remained below pre-pandemic levels. So we're seeing some increase, but not in the core, in most frequent in the core participation. So still some work for us to do, and hopefully this change goes back and helps that.
Very good.
Yes. Good seeing you, Nathan. Thank you very much. Thanks for everyone for listening, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. Take care.
See you, everyone.